In 2019, the autonomous region of Bougainville held a referendum to decide the future of its relationship with Papua New Guinea. Though non-binding, the referendum represents the culmination of a more than 50-year struggle for the Bougainvillians. A struggle that has frequently been less than peaceful and has now resulted in a 98% vote for independence. Despite the overwhelming result, the decision of Papua New Guinea's parliament to ratify the referendum is less than certain. But Prime Minister James Marape's recent language suggests that Bougainville could achieve its goal of independence in 2027. Much of the strife between Bougainville and Papua New Guinea centres on the Panguna copper mine. In 1972, the mine was opened by the Anglo-Australian Rio Tinto Company and was one of the largest in the world for copper and gold, providing 45% of Papua New Guinea's exports, 17% of its internal revenue, and 12% of its GDP, and enabling the country to gain its independence from Australia. But by 1988, the Rio Tinto Company's treatment of the Bougainvillians had led to a crisis point. Anger at the social and environmental impacts and at being paid only 1% of the mine's profits led to residents staging an armed incursion of the mine. In response, Papua New Guinea deployed its military, triggering a civil war that caused the deaths of an estimated 20,000 residents, 10% of the island's population. After 13 years and only through outside mediation, a peace deal was achieved in 2001, and Bougainville became an autonomous region with control over their domestic affairs, and secured Papua New Guinea's commitment to a non-binding referendum on independence within 20 years. After the overwhelming result of that referendum in 2019, the intensity of support for Bougainvillian independence is unmistakable and is making inaction by Papua New Guinea increasingly difficult, and a potential fuse for future violence. And at a time of instability threatening Papua New Guinean Prime Minister Marape's leadership, including a fuel crisis and tribal violence, resisting Bougainvillian independence could become untenable. Despite the ecological damage, if Bougainville does win its independence, its hopes for prosperity lie once again with the Panguna mine. Right now, independence for Bougainville is economically unviable. The region is able to raise only 3 million kina through taxes, about $800,000, less than 1% of the autonomous government's expenditure of 420 million kina, more than $110 million. If the mine is reopened, the gold and copper within is expected to be worth around $85 billion, and extracting it would provide jobs and expertise to the population. But dependency on a single resource is an inherently dangerous foundation for an economy. In addition to relying on the resource's continued value, resource dependence is not conducive to the creation of a strong government or economy, as it disincentivizes taxation as the government's primary source of income, creating a less representative political system by demanding less from the citizen body. To avoid the resource curse, Bougainville will need to develop its other industries, such as fishing, cocoa production, and tourism. While it has the potential to invigorate the Bougainvillian economy, the Panguna mine will not alone fund the creation of a truly independent nation. And the possibility of independence is also creating dissent over the island's potential geopolitical allies. Bougainville is carefully navigating the power politics of its region in order to cultivate aid from both China and the US and US allies. But the current president of the autonomous government of Bougainville, Ismail Turama, signaled a clear preference in 2023 by traveling to Washington, D.C. in an effort to raise American support for an independent Bougainville. The deepening relationship between the US and Papua New Guinea, including a defense treaty that May, does not seem an issue to President Turama, provided conflict with Papua New Guinea does not spill outside of political channels. The referendum also provides a moral justification for Bougainvillian independence, making Western resistance unlikely despite how inconvenient it may become. as the prominent opposition politician and former leader of the Bougainville rebel army, Sam Kaona, has vocally supported closer ties with China, claiming China will invest in Bougainville to build it as a nation, not just as a source of profit. Unlike the US and Australia, China has no colonial history in the area impacting its support, and Kaona even claimed before Bougainville's 2018 election that a Chinese delegation had offered substantial investment if Bougainville became independent. However, China's support is unlikely to be driven by the benevolence of building Bougainville as a nation. An independent Bougainville would weaken Papua New Guinea, a state with strong historical ties to Australia, creating a new weak nation dependent on Chinese aid and providing greater material dominance over the West through the Panguna mine. The island is also ideally located for a Chinese naval base. China has been making inroads into the region through a significant investment in the Solomon Islands, the nation most closely and geographically linked with Bougainville. However, that strategy may have backfired as support for China, as well as the presence of its nationals and companies, contributed significantly to protests and rioting in the Solomon Islands in 2021. If Bougainville gains independence, the new nation will face an uphill struggle to develop into a fully functioning state. Despite the rhetoric, the Panguna mine will not be enough to create an economy, but does provide a priceless source of revenue for future investment. Bougainville's history gives the island a persuasive narrative of a people fighting for their freedom against oppression. But once common foes are gone, outside pressure can no longer hold together internal divisions. With such strong support, Bougainville's dream of independence seems undeniable. But will that dream be enough to keep a fledgling state of Bougainville united in the face of fierce infighting stoked by opaque geopolitical currents?